I'm Mrs. Harper and welcome to my English Hub. I am head of English and have been an examiner for a number of years. And so having obtained all these years of experience and having seen so many students become so successful in their English exams, I would like now to share with you some tips on how to be successful in your GCSE English exams. So my focus today will be on comparing poems from the Love and Relationship cluster of the AQA anthology, but the skills and techniques taught I'm sure can be applied to any other cluster. What I aim to do with all my videos is to walk you through the process of developing a comprehensive level 6 response. So I'm going to look at the beginning of the journey right to the end and the final outcome things. So the exam question, the usual structure of the exam question: how do the poets present a theme? It could be whatever theme the exam board decides in, and there will be a named poem and another poem of your choice. For today's session, the question is: how is nature used to portray ideas about love in Love's Philosophy and another poem in the anthology? So step one, and I like to go through steps, as my students will confirm. I love going through steps because it does help us to remember. You read the question carefully, highlight the key words and choose your partner poem. So how is nature used to portray ideas about love in Love's Philosophy and another poem in the anthology? First of all, we highlight nature, we highlight love, because these are the themes or methods that we're going to look at. Nature in this instance is used as a method. So we're going to look at that, how it's used to talk about love. The named poem, Love's Philosophy. Our next step is to think about other poems in the anthology that use nature to present love. And there's so many of them. But we have, for example, Winter Swans, Neutral Tones, Sonnet 29, I think of and so many others. So once you've identified your second poem, the next step is to read through the named poem, which will be in front of you in the exam, and annotate references to nature that links to love. So we cannot forget the main theme here is love, and we're looking at how nature is used to present that. Think about the speaker's perspective of love in this poem. And then you make a note of references to nature in your chosen poem and the speaker's perspectives of love. So you're doing a plan. At this stage, you are planning. So for example, Love's Philosophy, and I've only put the first stanza, and that's a quick jotting down of the key ideas. So starting with the very title. So I'm not going to go into the analysis of this because the main idea here is to get you to write your response. So just have a look. So I've just jotted down some key ideas about the presentation of love. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is decide on my chosen poem, the one I think is really comparable and that will give me enough to talk about. So I've chosen Sonnet 29, I Think of Thee, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And once again, I've jotted down some points. The speaker is longing for her lover. She uses the extended metaphor of a tree to show how she feels about her lover. Her love is personal and physical. And then, of course, I quickly jot down some quotations before I forget them. Okay? So you jot down some quotations that you could use to support your argument later on. So I've read the poem, I've identified my second one, and I've made some notes. Putting it all together, the way you plan is completely up to you. But I like a Venn diagram because we have the two sides. We have this bit showing how they're different, and then in the middle, how they're similar. So very quick jotting down. It doesn't have to be neat and perfect because it's going to be handwritten anyway. But examiners love to see a plan. So very quickly, and I've noted, well, in Love's Philosophy, the speaker doesn't seem to be in a relationship, whereas for Browning, it seems as though she's in a relationship, and so on. Remember, there's no right or wrong as long as you can justify it. So I've shown how they're different, and in the middle, I've jotted down two quick things to show how they're also similar. Don't forget to add context, and you can add that to your plan as well. So here, I've jotted down a few points about the context. Romantic poets, they were keen on preserving nature owing to the Industrial Revolution, and therefore this was always present in their writing. Browning, as a woman, however, would not be as explicit as her male counterparts with her sexual desires. Hence, she would have to be subtle and rely on metaphors. So just a couple of things 2 or 3 things for context, because it's only 6 marks, so don't overdo it. So I've got my plan. I know what I'm going to write about. I've shaped my ideas in my head. Now I'm going to write my response. So start with a thesis statement. Name the poems you'll be discussing and state your stance, your points that you will be covering. Remember, an English literature essay is an argument, okay? So you're setting up your argument. You're telling the examiners, this is what I'm going to be writing about. Here's an example. Both Shelley in Love's Philosophy and Elizabeth Barrett Browning in Sonnet 29, I Think of Thee, use nature to present their feelings, emotions, and lustful thoughts. However, while Shelley does this in a generally positive way, Browning's use of an extended metaphor is more ambiguous and hints at the more obsessive nature of love. So what have I done here? I start by comparing immediately. And this is one of the tips that you must follow. Start by comparing both. Because rather than talking about one poem, then the other, then trying to bring it together, in order to get into level 6, you've got to start comparing both. Then I've named the poems, okay? Love's Philosophy, Sonnet 29. Name the poem that I'm going to be comparing it with. And then I've stated my 3 points. I'm going to look at their feelings and how they use nature to present these, the emotions as a result of this, and their lustful thoughts, okay? And then I've given an overview of both poems, a very quick perspective. So it's not lengthy. I've named my poems. These are the things I'm going to talk about, and then some quick overview of how these 2 people perceive love. So to show you're comparing, you should make cross-references to different parts of the poems. Try to follow the following structure. Your teachers may have something different. Go with what you're comfortable with. Make a point which compares. Use a quote from the primary poem, that's the named one. Explain the effect of the quotation. Analyze, evaluate. Then you use a reference from the secondary poem, that's the one you've chosen. Do the same. Explain the effect and link the ideas. Show how they're similar or different. So let's look at my development. Both poets use nature as a metaphor for a physical aspect of their relationship. Shelley claims that the fountains mingle with the river. The verb mingle suggests a positive mixing, and by using the metaphor of water, Shelley gives the reader the impression of movement, light, and vitality. Water is crucial to life. Perhaps Shelley wants his audience to feel that love is similarly critical to survival. The idea of the 2 waters mingling implies a physical joining where drops of water from different sources are mixed together. He could also be suggesting that like the free-flowing nature of water, so should love flow between 2 people. Shelley may also be implying a physical joining here and hoping for a similar response from the object of his affections. Notice I've made my point, okay? I've provided the evidence. And all of this bit is me not just explaining, but evaluating. I've given the overall meaning that's being implied. The verb mingles, I've zoomed in on particular word, and I've taken it apart. I've given at least 2 interpretations. The idea of 2 waters mingling implies a physical joining. Shelley may also be implying, he could also be suggesting. And these are the phrases you use to show the examiners that you are not just giving one brief explanation, you are beginning to evaluate and you are beginning to become perceptive. And we continue to develop the body of the essay. Barrett Browning, now I'm introducing my second poem, similarly uses nature as a metaphor for love, and she also seems to imply a desire for a physical relationship, but her attitude is different. Instead of playful persuasion like Shelley's mingling water, Browning uses an imperative to demand physical love and attention from her love when she says, "Rustle thy boughs and set thy trunk all bare." Just as Shelley uses different water sources to represent himself and his love, Browning uses the metaphor of the palm tree to represent her lover and vines to represent her thoughts. Nature played a vital role in the writings of the Romantics. Therefore, it would have been easy for both writers to use nature to present their thoughts and feelings. As a female poet, Browning would have had to suppress her sexual thoughts and ideas, whereas Shelley would have been seen as more of an authority, being male. So notice, I've introduced my second poem. I've talked about how it's similar, but also different. I've made sure to incorporate my reference, "Rustle thy boughs and set thy trunk all bare." and then I've explained and given my evaluation of that and what it suggests, and could have gone even deeper with that as well. But one thing I've also done in this bit is to introduce a bit of context. So that's my AO3 taken care of. I continue. While Shelley wants the two sources to mingle, Barrett Browning wants the palm tree, the strong, deep-rooted, protective male, to dispel her thoughts. The verb rustle suggests that she wants the man to take action, and the suggestion he should set his trunk bare is actually rather suggestive and could be a euphemism for nakedness and a sexual relationship. So notice, earlier on I mentioned the quotation. I tried to incorporate a little bit of context, and here I've gone back to give further evaluation of that quotation. Both poets want some kind of response, probably a physical or sexual one from their love, but while Shelley couches his suggestion in quite innocent terms using water and later the suggestion of a kiss, Browning is a little more explicit with her rather phallic use of trunk, combined with the idea that it should be bare. These differences could be because Shelley wasn't yet in a relationship with the person he was writing for, whereas Barrett Browning was already committed to her palm tree. Again, a little bit of context. Again, I'm comparing, so that's my AO1 being really succinct, comprehensive and detailed. Now, this is not the entire response. This is just a synopsis of how you should approach it. And then once you've completed all of that, you make sure you have your conclusion. Okay, so both poets have used nature to capture their desire for physical love. Sorry, let's go back. Shelley uses the argument of nature, mixing and mingling, emphasizing the lack of inhibitions for natural things to commingle, thereby presenting a more universal message. Browning, on the other hand, refers to the vines being wrapped around the palm tree, herself being the vines and her love of the palm tree, making her experience more personal and intimate. So, in your conclusion, you're summing up your argument, and you're not reintroducing anything new. You're just saying, this is my overall impression. Okay, so let's recap. 1, read the question and highlight the key words and phrases. 2, decide on your second poem, make sure the themes are similar. 3, plan your answer, think of at least 3 points, think of how the themes are similar and how they're different. 4, write your thesis statement, which is an introduction to establish your argument. 5, develop your ideas, have at least 3 to 4 PEA paragraphs, and make links to context where possible. Then you write your conclusion to sum up your ideas. So good luck, and check out the Nova e-learning platform for detailed poetry revision. There's a link below this presentation. You can check that out, and you could maybe get in touch via email, and that will also be in the link below. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found this very useful.